One decision, made in a single building in Washington, is the reason 3 of the world's most powerful AI models all went public within hours of each other today. 3 separate companies, 3 flagship systems, colliding on one ordinary Thursday, something that has never happened before in this entire industry. It wasn't coincidence, and it wasn't OpenAI freely picking its moment. Now look at exactly what shipped today, because the raw details rewrite the whole story.
Start with the frame, because it explains the panic. For most of this boom, frontier intelligence behaved like a scarce commodity. One lab shipped a flagship, the market stared at it for weeks, and pricing held firm. That scarcity is exactly what kept these companies worth trillions. Today it broke in a single afternoon. When 3 suppliers dump comparable product onto the same market on the same day, 2 things always follow. Prices fall, and the thing you were selling stops feeling special.
Supplier 1. OpenAI released GPT 5.6 this morning in 3 tiers. Sol at the top, Terra in the middle, Luna at the floor. Sol posted 91.9% on Terminal Bench 2.1. A leading score on the long, tool-heavy tasks businesses actually pay for. Then look at the price tags. Terra runs $2.50 per million tokens in, 15 on output. Luna drops to a single dollar and 6 out. A year ago, Frontier performance didn't come with a budget menu. And OpenAI didn't stop at a model. Alongside it came ChatGPT work, an agent built to take a goal, crawl across your apps, and grind for hours, breaking one big job into small steps on its own. The output isn't a chat reply. It's finished spreadsheets, slide decks, documents, working web apps. To ship it, OpenAI folded its Codex coding engine into a single desktop app, and quietly began sunsetting its Atlas browser. That last detail matters more than it sounds.
Why does killing a browser matter? Because it tells you what OpenAI now thinks the product is. Not a place you type questions, a worker that does the whole job end to end. And it's a direct answer to Anthropic, whose Claude Cowork agent has been doing exactly this since January. Planning and executing multi-step tasks with no human babysitting each move. Both are aimed at the same buyer. The office professional who can't code but wants a coder's leverage. Now supplier 2. And here the story gets slippery. On the same day, Musk's AI company pushed Grok 4.5 public. Musk's pitch, in his own words, an Opus-class model, but faster, more token-efficient and lower cost. It's built on a 1.5 trillion parameter foundation, and, notably, trained partly on data from the cursor coding tool. Bold claim. One problem. The company published no independent benchmarks to back any of it. In a market this consequential, trust me is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Supplier 3 is quieter, but arguably the most telling. Anthropic staged no fireworks today. It didn't need to. Claude Sonnet 5 is now simply the default for every user, and Claude Fable 5 is back online through credits. No Coundon, no Keynote, no hype real. When your rival's newest flagship shows up as a background setting change on the exact afternoon 2 competitors hold press events, that silence is itself a statement about confidence. So tally the board. 3 frontier-class systems from 3 separate labs, all publicly available inside one workday. By one industry tracker's count, it's the first time in AI history that's ever happened. And that's not marketing, it's a structural shift. But here's where it gets really interesting, because a flood of supply doesn't just crown a winner. It exposes who was never really competing on the model at all. Follow the money and the pattern jumps out. 2 years ago, a frontier model was a luxury good priced like one. Today OpenAI is selling its floor tier at a single dollar per million tokens in. Musk is competing on being lower cost. Anthropic is bundling its flagship in for free, as a default. When every supplier's headline feature is that it's cheaper, you are not looking at a technology race anymore. You are watching a commodity market form in real time. And this flood of cheap models runs straight into a harder limit. Chips. Reports landed this week that Beijing is preparing to let its own champions, Alibaba, ByteDance, DeepSeek, buy Nvidia's H200 GPUs again, after a months-long blockade. But read the fine print. Imports capped below 200,000 units, less than half of what was requested, and strictly for model training only. For everyday inference, Beijing wants companies reaching for domestic silicon instead. That last condition is the real tell. On routine inference work, Chinese regulators are steering companies toward Huawei's Ascend chips, which have already overtaken Nvidia's China-tuned parts in enterprise adoption there. So on the same day 3 American labs flood the world with cheap intelligence, the largest market on the planet is quietly deciding how much of the underlying hardware it will even allow through the door. Models are becoming abundant. The compute to run them is being rationed. You'd expect that to rattle Nvidia. Instead the stock barely moved, up a fraction on Wednesday, still trading below its short-term averages, waiting. Because whether China buys 200,000 H200s or zero, the deeper truth holds.
The bottleneck in AI stopped being the model months ago. It's the silicon, the power, and the permission to import both. That reframes every launch you saw today. But wait, there's a name I've barely mentioned, and it may be the most important one of all.
Here's the name Washington. Remember GPT 5.6 launching today? It wasn't supposed to. Its release was delayed last month at the US government's request, over national security concerns. The frontier model was held on a shelf until federal officials signed off. The date it finally went public, this exact Thursday, was cleared by the Trump administration, not chosen freely by OpenAI, which means the single most crowded day in AI history was scheduled, in part, from inside the government. Sit with that for a second. A private company's flagship product shipped on a calendar a government approved. Whether you cheer it or fear it, it's the clearest sign yet that frontier AI has crossed from pure commerce into something closer to regulated infrastructure. Treated like an export you need a license for, on both sides of the Pacific. America gates the model. China gates the chips. The labs move between them.
And that's exactly why the unverified claims stand out. When Musk says Grok is opus class with no independent benchmark, in a market this consequential, the gap between marketing and proof isn't a rounding error, it's the whole risk. Governments are now gatekeeping these systems as if they were strategic weapons, while some of the companies selling them still ask the public to take performance on pure faith. Those two facts cannot both stay true for very long.
So step back to the framework one more time. When supply floods and prices collapse, the model itself stops being the moat. What's left to compete on? Distribution, whose agent is already inside your workflow. Trust, whose numbers you can actually verify. And access, who can get the chips and the government clearance to keep shipping at all. Today didn't crown a smartest AI. It revealed that smartest may be the least valuable thing a lab now owns.
That's the quiet story under the noise. 3 historic launches in one day sounds like the peak of a race. Read it the way an economist would. And it looks more like the moment a race turns into a market, where being brilliant matters less than being cheap, embedded, and clear to operate. The magic is becoming a utility, and utilities don't win on wonder. They win on price, reliability, and permission.
Now you can see the one decision I promised at the start. The reason 3 frontier models collided on the same ordinary Thursday wasn't a marketing stunt or a coincidence of engineering. It's that Washington cleared GPT 5.6 for release on this specific date, dropping OpenAI onto a day its rivals had already booked. A single government sign-off set the stage, and turned a normal afternoon into the most crowded 12 hours this industry has ever seen. If watching all of this land in a single day changed how you read the AI race, that's the point. And it's worth a second pass because the details connect differently the second time through. If this made the noise make sense, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who still thinks the smartest model automatically wins. Then drop a comment. Models flooding, chips rationed, governments setting launch dates. Which one reshapes the next year most? I'll see you in the next one. That's the story. If you'd watch one more like this, hit subscribe and I'll have another ready soon.